Before we go any further, there will be spoiler talk for Haikyuu ahead, so if you aren't up to date with the anime, then I suggest exiting this video until you are up to date. Or if you don't care about spoilers, then welcome. About a year ago, I was planning on releasing a video on Haikyuu talking about how Karasuno as a team has an outstanding foundation and how every player on that team fits in like a glove with one another. From Hinata and Kageyama all the way to Kayako and Takade. However, that video never saw the light of day to it getting copyrighted claimed to oblivion, and I could never find a workaround to get it published. But this time around, I plan to take parts of that video and kind of combine them into this one, so I'm hoping I'm able to publish this video without any restrictions. However, if copyright, problems do arise, I'll probably just use still images in its place because this is a video that I'm really passionate about, and I honestly think this is going to be one of my better videos I've ever made, and it's a topic I really want to talk about. I also want to go through a quick little recap of Season 4 Part 1 to try to give you all a kind of understanding of where I'm coming from before we get into the Part 2 of why I think Season 4 Part 2 is masterful. Also, please note, whenever I do talk about that cancelled video, I was only talking about things up until Season 3 at that point, because Season 4 at the time had never came out yet. So a lot of the points are kind of invalid or could be easily disputed. So going into Season 4, I had high hopes for what Karasuno was going to become. They just got done beating a team that, in my eyes, is the most top offensive team they have ever come across. And they were almost unable to match the attack strength that they had. But yet, they still came out on top. Then at the end of that season, we hear Kageyama getting invited to that youth Olympic training camp. Then, as we all know, Season 4 starts off with brand new art and animation, which is amazing by the way, as well as somewhat of a slower start than usual. However, it's an outstanding payoff, as we will see later. We get to see Tanaka get the training and getting better as an offensive option, and the same as Asahi, who has now been able to add another weapon into his arsenal, the jump serve, as well as like a sort of time spike or wipe. However, like most things, they aren't instantly better, as they do have a few rough patches along the way. Then during Kageyama's training, along some of the best youth players in the country, you can't tell me that there is no other way we wouldn't see improvement from him while he trains there. However, the most important training came from Hinata, as he becomes a ball boy at the first year training camp. We all know Hinata is an offensive monster whenever he's on the court, and even though he had good intentions when it came to defense, we all know that that is his weakest aspect of his game, mainly due to the fact that it seems like he just didn't think and more acted on instinct on that end of the field or court. However, as the ball boy, he was forced to watch games from a distance, just like he used to. But this time, it was to show us, or more or less show him, how others play and how he can be in certain situations and try to defend better. Then once this little training arc is completed, we once again see everyone come back together and get to see some of their training pay off. In a practice match against Data Tech, we get to see the little glimpses of what is to come from everyone. However, one of the most important things during this time was Kageyama taking back his crown. One of the topics I wanted to talk about during my Haikyuu video that never got to release was why Kageyama failed as the king of the court during his middle school days. However, it would have been amazing during his Karasuno days. And to make a long story short, because it's pretty much shown to us in Season 4 Part 1, it's because Karasuno has peers that are able to keep him accountable. In middle school, we all go through some little phase that we think we know it all and all that. However, it comes back to bite Kageyama a ton during his middle school time as the king of the court. We also saw that it seemed that his old team just never seemed to take action to get after him or put him in his place when he needed to be put in his place. They just ended up giving up on him. While also at the same time, his middle school team is a younger and they're all around the same age group. Whereas at Karasuno, he has older peers that have more experience and you trust them more. But Karasuno also 100% believes in Kageyama, and I believe that was the biggest change that allowed him to take back his crown. Getting to see that moment in the first part of Season 4 made me happy, because not only did I get to see one of my points get proven, but that whole scene just lives rent-free as he takes back his crown. And seeing it all came together was just worth it all. Then we move to the Nationals, where we get some outstanding Haikyuu development, while also getting an understanding that this tournament is literally no joke, and that these are the best of the best teams here. Kind of to be expected since it is a national tournament. And then here we are, the reason for this whole video. Season 4, Part 2 starts. Now to lay it all out there as to why I think Season 4 Part 2 is a masterpiece, is because I think it pushed everything I loved about Karasuno to its limits. In my cancel video, I mentioned earlier how Karasuno is basically a well-rounded team because everyone fits in to each other like a glove. They all cover each other's bases. But alongside that, they all know the roles they have to play, even though there's a ton of talented players on this team. And they all complement each other fairly well. Whereas Inazaki High is a team based off just pure talent, it seems like. And this match pushed that type of ideology against each other when building a team. Do you build a team that has a ton of talented players but lacks teamwork? Or do you build a team based off teamwork and let your few talented players lead the charge? Of course, by now, we all know who came up on top. However, this match could have easily gone the other way if a few plays go the other way. I also believe that because Inazaki High was so talented from top to bottom, that they were able to pull a version of Karasuno out that we've never seen before. I truly believe that if Karasuno never came across Inazaki High, they would never be able to go that one level deeper into their love of volleyball, because they needed to go extra deep in order to come out on top against this team. And like I said, they're the only team I think that has been able to push that boundary against Karasuno. And another reason why I loved Part 2, which I know some people may disagree on me on, is the Nekomo match. I know a lot of people didn't really care for these 2 episodes, I believe it was 2 episodes, because it kind of took away from the meat and potatoes of this whole season between Karasuno and Inazaki High. And it kind of killed the mood for some people, and I completely understand that. However, I believe the Nekomo match showed us how truly scary and deep of a team Nekomo really is. They're a team that doesn't really get your eyes. They're not really an eye-popper team. And they're not really that flashy like Karasuno or Inazaki High. But they're a team that is more about that grit and grind that bothers a lot of other teams. If you know anything about sports, you know that the grit and grind teams are the worst when you have to play against them. And like I said, to the average person, they're kind of boring to watch. But I think for us sports fans, or fans of sports in general, they're probably some of your favorite teams out there because of the style that they play. I think to truly love a team like Nekomo, you have to have a certain level of sports and appreciate them. For example, I really love basketball, and I'm a Celtics fan by heart. However, some of my most favorite teams that I've been able to watch and see play were that grit and grind Grizzlies team and that 2014 Spurs. An average person probably shied away from watching these teams play when they're on because, like I said, they're a very slow-paced team, and they don't really do anything flashy while they're on national television. However, they get the job done. There's a reason why that grit and grind Grizzlies team made it so far in the playoffs that year, and why that super well-rounded 2014 Spurs team won the championship. All because they wore other teams down by playing the way they want to play, while at the same time executing everything they did to perfection. And I think Nekomo falls in line with these types of teams. Inazaki High clearly pushed Karasuno to their physical limits as a team. However, I think Nekomo will push them in a way that hurts more than physically, and that's psychologically. And that's where I think those 2 episodes will come into play. We saw how they were able to trap the other team and make them play their style of game, and making them play to their own tune without them even realizing it. And then of course, as we saw in those 2 episodes, and as we see in sports, once teams realize that they're falling into that plan, it's almost too late for you to come up with a different solution to get out of it. It's basically too little too late. You are playing their game, and you are playing the way they want you to play. And those 2 episodes really showcased how easy it is for Nekomo to trap teams into their own style and their own way they want you to play, while also showing us that they have different game plans based on the fact that their team just has a ton of really great players on it. I really wish Season 5 was out right now, because as an anime-only fan of Haikyuu, Karasuno vs Inazaki High is clearly my favorite, as you could tell by the video, but I honestly believe that once season 5 comes out and we get Karasuno versus Nekoma, I truly believe that that will be my favorite match by a long shot, because I love Nekoma and this match is going to be scary. You're going to have the super physical and talented team of Karasuno versus the well-rounded trap game grit and grind Nekoma. I really can't wait to see that match. I'm so excited to see that match. Then the last little bit I really want to talk about, and it kind of sealed the deal for me on this season, or this part of the season for me, was the characters and the character development that happened during this part. And this section is probably going to be the longest, so strap in. To really set things off with this part of season 4, it gave me one of my favorite antagonists of all time, Mia. There's literally nothing There's literally nothing I disliked about Mia the whole time while we were watching him. He's a goofball, and he's annoying, but his passion for the game and the way he sees it made me fall in love with his character. The "because I'm a setter" scene is so well crafted and so well put together that I honestly was smiling ear to ear when he said that. It's like we saw in that little bit how much he truly loves volleyball, and that he's willing to go to the lengths that other players won't even try to do so. Then not only that, he also made Kageyama realize that, yeah, you know what? I'm glad that we made it this far to face players like Mia as well. Then I also wanted to talk about, the thing Mia said to Hinata at the very end of the season, the "someday I will sit to you." And it really got me thinking that if these two do become partners one day, they will be probably one of the most dangerous duos I could ever think of. Because of not only of their pure talent, but because of the love of the game that they both have. I feel like if both of them teamed up with one another, they would be able to push each other beyond their limits and just make each other better each and every single game. It would almost be like how Hinata pushes Kageyama. However, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in this video. And then while we're still on Irazaki's side right now, I would like to say how much I love Kite, as well as a character. This guy literally, from the moment he stepped to the court and just started criticizing his teammates, I knew I would love him. Because his criticism wasn't wrong in the slightest, but it's more for them to realize their own mistakes while playing. He's their own little guardian angel. He fixes the mistakes his teammates make, while also opening their eyes to the mistakes that they make so they don't mess up again. However, the moment that really made me love his character was the speech on talent, and I feel like that speech was the best way to ever talk about talent in any way. Because a lot of people, myself included, seem to forget the effort and the consistent training that these talented players have to put themselves through in order to be the best player they are. We don't get to see all the grinding they do, all the times they wake up early, any of that stuff. And Kite kind of puts that into perspective of like the monsters of like Kageyama, Hinata, and Mia. Just because they're talented doesn't mean that they were born with the talent. They grew that talent themselves and pushed themselves even further. And Kite really put that in the best perspective I could ever think of. Now let's go over to Karasuno's side, and let's start with Nishinoya. For the first time in a very long time, we saw Nishinoya vulnerable. In a way, I don't think we've never seen him before. Mia straight singled him out and just forced him to rethink everything he was doing while he was on the court, which is something Nishinoya doesn't really do. He usually just acts on instinct. And as we know, Mia's plan was to break that glue that holds this team together, starting with Nishinoya, and he was almost able to do so if it wasn't for Kinoshita getting involved. He was able to get Nishinoya to refocus and make him stop doubting himself. We saw bits and pieces of how these two were practicing and training with each other, but I never thought that it would play out the way it did here and now, and boy was it great. Then there's the great boy Tanaka. His development was absolutely one of the best parts of the season. Just like Nishinoya, Tanaka was forced to have his back against the wall, both physically and mentally. Iraizaki had found a way to shut down Tanaka each and every time he went for a spike, which we saw was taking a toll on him and on Tanaka's well-being, making him think that he isn't a good player and made him feel like he was basically useless on the court. However, our little ball Sunshine Hinata was able to talk to Tanaka and tell him all the good things he was doing on the court. Iraizaki forced Tanaka to think about only all the bad stuff he was doing on the court, but Hinata saw all the little things he was doing to help everyone around him, and that's what brought Tanaka, we all know and love, back into the realization of who he was. And boy, does he show off with one of the most amazing cut shots that we've gotten to see in this whole anime. And then it also seals the first set for Karasuno. Then there was the conversation that Tanaka had with Kageyama during the match, which really highlights both of their growths to this point. Tanaka asking Kageyama to set the ball less to him shows a lot of growth from Tanaka, because Tanaka loves to be a part of the offense, but at that time he felt it was necessary for him to step away. However, Kageyama didn't see that in fact. He believed that Tanaka would be able to go into his bag of tricks and make something happen, which he did, with another amazing spike, a line shot. We saw Tanaka overcome his darkest moments on the court, while also showcasing that whatever happens during this tournament, he is ready to become Karasuno's next ace. Then let's talk about the best blocker ever, Suki. The Suki that we have in this season is what Season 1 Suki would make fun of. Suki has probably had one of the best developments in all of Haikyuu to this point, anime version wise. Not only has Suki as a person changed by being around his teammates, but his overall game has changed as well. Suki was a brat to say the least in the first season and a half, and to be completely honest, I really thought if he continued this way, he would just end up quitting the club altogether. However, I think that training camp in Season 2 really opened up something within Suki. I think it was his interest in finding what would get him hooked to volleyball as a player, and we saw that moment play out in Season 3 against Usujima, an opponent that no one shut down up until that point where Suki was able to do so. Then in Season 4 we see him try out new things like setting and spiking, which I think will open up Suki's game even more than ever. Then as Inarzaki's match plays out, we really see how much Suki has grown. We see a style of blocking that catches Rintaro off guard, because Suki was making it seem like each and every time they went up against each other, Rintaro was winning the battle. But in reality, he was giving everyone around him the opportunity to see how Rintaro spikes the ball, and that was able to help them get the nice receives that they needed to keep the ball in play. Then, the thing that really showcased how much Suki has grown was his dive to save the ball during the last rally. Suki from Season 1 would have just let that ball go out of bounds, but this Suki is willing to battle to the very end of the match, no matter what. Then the last little bit I want to talk about involving Suki is his belief in his teammates, especially Hinata. I never once thought there were bad intentions between the two. I just thought they were just having a friendly competition and competitive spirit, and both were just basically battling each other while on the court to see who was the better player. But I think in this part of the season, we saw how much they really do rely on each other and believe that the other can complete the job that needs to be done, and how much they actually rely on each other as well. Now before I really get into Hinata and Kageyama, there's a character that I think went under the radar this season in terms as a character, and that's Suga. I think a lot of people have forgotten how much Suga has had and is sacrificing during this tournament. He's in his last year and not a starter because he believes that Kageyama is the better setter of the two, and that Kageyama is able to lead the way that he can. Because I really don't know how professional sports really work over in Japan. I know in the States, in high school and college, kids get, scouted all the time in their final years. And we don't really get an idea if Suga actually wants to go pro or not. We don't really see that, and he never really talks about it. But by the off chance he actually does want to go pro, he's giving up the opportunity of basically being scouted for a college team or a pro team. And again, I really don't know how professional sports really work over in Japan, but I'm just basing it off this Haikyuu bit where the Olympic coach was watching the game from the sidelines. So I'm kind of assuming it's almost the same thing, that, you can just go pro if you are good enough, or you could just go straight to college and play out and then you go pro, whatever the case may be. Suga is giving up that opportunity of a lifetime there to be scouted, and going pro, that's life-changing money right there. Or getting a scholarship to a college, that's another life-changing event. But because Suga believes in this team, and because he believes in Kageyama, he's putting on the biggest sacrifice that anyone on this team has given so far. But there was also the commentary from the sideline Suga was given that I think a lot of people didn't really pay attention to, or just undermined. Suga is like a parent on this team. He watches everyone and makes sure they're all alright, and he sure loves to see how much everyone has grown to this point. And his commentary was always interesting to me, because it kind of felt like he was giving us a perspective on the game that we really aren't able to see anywhere else, or from the players that are on the court. I just really think Suga was just an outstanding character this part of the season that people really should appreciate more. Now let's talk about our king, Kageyama. Kageyama has grown a lot since the start of this whole series, but most importantly, and something I mentioned earlier, was it seems Kageyama is finally able to be himself because of his teammates. Kageyama has clearly blossomed into a beast of a setter that I don't think anyone can really match up to this point right now besides Mia. But I think the most scary thing is that he's still growing as a player. There are a few things he tried out during this match, such as the little floater serve, which if he can add that to his arsenal, then he'll be threat no matter where he is on the court. But the other thing is that's really scary is the bounds and leap he's willing to take to keep up with Hinata. These two are teammates, however on a level more than that, they are rivals to one another. Even though both have competitions with one another, they both really want to win a match no matter whatever match it is. And I feel like that style and that rivalry between the two brings out the best in each other each and every single game and makes them go twice as hard. Then there's a little sunball Hinata. Hinata we have seen grown through the seasons just like Kageyama. However, I think in this season we really saw how much of a monster he is truly becoming. Like I said earlier, defense was Hinata's worst aspect of his game. You could easily tell other teams would always target him on the defensive end because it was almost a guaranteed point, or he would get lucky and receive the ball. However, the Hinata that we are seeing in this match is showing the patches that he's made to fix up that defensive problem. We saw so many times in the last few episodes that with his freakish athletic ability that he's able to get to the ball anywhere on the court. And not only that, keep the ball in play and do it perfectly. I really think this is just the start of a monster we're seeing from Hinata. And I can only imagine how much more crazy and scary he's going to be if he continues being able to receive the balls he's able to do now. And then this is just going to be a little bit talking about Hinata and Kageyama as a pair. I also love the little rivalry between the two. And I mentioned it a little while ago while talking about Kageyama. But during this part of the season, I really do believe they've really brought the best out of each other. And I think it really showcased in the last 3 episodes, I believe, where Hinata was able to kick the ball over the net because Kageyama wasn't able to set the ball properly. And that really brought Kageyama to a point where he knows he has to keeping up with Hinata because of his athletic ability. And then I think it showcased a step further when it came to that final block. That block was something I think only those two were capable of pulling off because of the trials and errors they both had with that quick. They know the ins and outs of it, and them doing that block I think showcases how much everyone has had to learn in their past games in order to keep up with everyone, while also showcasing the growth that they've done, that they don't always rely on the quick anymore. They have different offensive weapons, they have different defensive schemes, that they're truly becoming a team that is threatening no matter where they're playing on the court. Haikyuu Season 4 Part 2 is nothing short of wonderful. There is so much to love from the season that I hope I was able to do it justice. And the crazy thing is, I think Season 5 will probably be even better than that. And I'm truly ready for it. I hope you all really enjoyed this video. And as this video is the end, I hope you all have a great and safe rest of your day. And until the next time I talk to you all, I will see you later.